Hello there, I'm Greg Sadler, and I'm very excited to be announcing another opportunity to get to study with me over the course of 8 weeks. My most popular online class is Aristotle on the moral virtues. We've already run this twice before, and the students who take it find it really engaging, valuable. They come away with all sorts of understanding of what it is that Aristotle is telling us, and more importantly, how to apply it within our own lives. So I am offering a 8-week class that meets for 90-minute class sessions on Saturdays, and it is beginning this new version of it on April 13th, and it will run all the way to June 1st. So if you're looking for a opportunity to get to study Aristotle with somebody who not only really, knows his stuff, that's me, but really loves Aristotle as well and thinks that the virtues and vices and study them can be helpful in our own lives, well, then you might want to consider signing up for this class. You can find the link to enroll below, and you can also find all sorts of things about the class even before you enroll, so you don't have to make the decision right away. I do want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do in the class and what we've done in the previous versions of this class. So in the very first week, we're going to be looking at Nicomachean Ethics, Book 2, where Aristotle gives us the general overview of what it is that virtues and vices are. We're going to talk about habits and how we build them, and what else is involved besides just habits, and why Aristotle has the somewhat unusual, compared to other virtue ethics, list of virtues or good character traits that he recommends to us. Then, in week 2, we're going to begin our march through Nicomachean Ethics, Book 3, later Book 4, looking at each of the virtues or sets of virtues in turn. So the very first two ones that we'll be looking at, courage and temperance, among the big heavy hitters of virtues. No matter what virtue ethics you have from the ancient world, these are absolutely central for Aristotle, so that's what we'll do in that week. Week 3, we're going to take what seems like a little bit of a detour, but this is something really distinctive about Aristotle's approach. We're going to be looking at the virtue of whatever you want to call it, gentleness, mildness, good temper. It has to do with our emotion of anger and how we manage it. And there, we're not just going to be looking at the Nicomachean Ethics. We'll also be looking at some sections of the rhetoric and perhaps the Eudemian Ethics as well as a supplement. And this is an area of my particular research and publication and interest as well. In week 4, we're going to shift to looking at the virtues and vices that have to do with what we do with our wealth. Also, to some degree, other resources like our time and attention. Aristotle talks about liberality or generosity on a everyday level, and then he talks about magnificence on a higher social level. So we're going to look at the ins and outs of those. In week 5, we shift to looking at 2 other virtues that are concerned with external goods, no longer of wealth, but of honor or social status or prestige. We have right ambition, again, on an ordinary level. And then we have something that's really distinctive to Aristotle's ethics, which is, it gets translated as magnanimity or great souledness, megalopsychia in Greek. And that's on a higher level. Then we're going to shift to looking at another really distinctive feature in week 6, which is what Aristotle calls the social virtues. He thinks that a good sense of humor is something that we need to cultivate, as well as truthfulness or honesty about ourselves, our achievements, our qualities, and friendliness or, going along with things, but only to a certain degree. Then as we're starting to finish up, we will, in week 7, look at book 5 of the Nicomachean Ethics, which is concerned entirely with this virtue of justice, which has to do with the other virtues as well, as we're going to find out. And we finish up the class in week 8 by going into Nicomachean Ethics, book 6, where we will be focusing on something that's not exactly a moral virtue, but it's not just an intellectual virtue. It's something that bridges the gap between those. Phronesis, translated as prudence or practical wisdom. And we'll also be looking at the question of the unity or not unity of the various virtues. So we're going to cover a lot of ground going from book 2 to book 6 of the Nicomachean Ethics. We'll probably touch on some other parts as well. And I do want to say a little bit about the resources I provide. So we have these 90-minute class sessions, which we record. You get lifetime access to them, so you can go back over them anytime that you want to. If you miss a class, if you have to go on vacation or something comes up, you can always go back to it as many times as you want. I also provide you with the same handouts that I use with my own students in my classes developed to teach the Nicomachean Ethics. And I've got a lot of them. And we've got worksheets that you can use to try to figure out how you could become more virtuous, less vicious in your life. So those are all helpful. And we follow up our class conversations with discussion forums where you can engage with me, your instructor, or with your fellow students in sort of a community of inquiry, asking questions that maybe you didn't think of in the course session, or thinking about follow-up questions, raising examples, all of those sorts of things. I'll wrap up here by saying that not only is this a class that I've offered twice before in this exact iteration, but I've been teaching this stuff for over 2 decades to students of all walks of life. Why? Because I think that understanding and being able to apply the knowledge that you acquire of virtue ethics from Aristotle is really quite valuable. So if you want the chance to get to study this material, this great thinker, with somebody who's, as I think you can tell, not just competent and knowledgeable about this, but also pretty passionate about how wonderful Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is as a guide to developing the better parts of ourselves and weaning ourselves away from the worst parts of ourselves, you might want to take this class. So the information is below. It's in my Study with Sadler Teachable Academy. You don't need to have studied Aristotle prior to this. You can come in cold as a complete beginner. If you have studied Aristotle, you're going to find stuff in here that'll go beyond what you've already engaged with. And, this is one of those classes that when I teach it, it gets the best reviews. And you can find out why if you want to check out the class or perhaps enroll. So that's it. I hope that you'll consider taking this class with me. And if you don't do it this time around, we probably are going to offer this one every year because there is such high demand. You want to make sure to get in early because we do have a enrollment cap. So, if you don't want to wait till the last minute necessarily, but you've got all the information you need at this point, so you can figure out what you would like to do.